You can drink that music version of it. I want to get everybody who's out there enjoying their morning breakfast to come on in and grab a seat. Everybody grab a seat. We're going to wait just a couple minutes. One second. 3, 2, 1. Now, I've been asked by several gentlemen in the room whether they could get a special discount on whatever roses are left over at the end of the morning. And believe me, that's available to you. If anyone wants to make the mad dash at the end, I'm holding on to 3 special ones here in case you can work out a deal up there left in big bucks. But enjoy. Thank you very much for having me Valentine's Day to all of you. I think that in deference to Valentine's Day, just even start the morning like this in an effective way. I'd like you all on your feet. Everybody on your feet. Everybody up for just a second. Everybody on your feet for just a second. Whoa, hold it down. Hold that up. Now, it's Valentine's Day. It's a very important day of the year. I know it's a little bit commercial. It's marginally commercial, but I know that love in the air and love in the room is the most important element of the real estate business that I know of. There's nothing more important than love in real estate. Nothing. So I want you to turn to the person on your right. Look deep into their eyes. Give them a great big hug and say, I love you too! We're good. You can drive. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a great PowerPoint session for you this morning. I'm just going to take a few minutes and bring you up to date on some wonderful events and things happening in all of our lives. I'm going to touch on a little bit of the market and some of that lovely negative press we've been experiencing. Battered by the Global Mail on a regular basis. I'd like to all canceling subscriptions. Is there anyone here from the Globe? We love you, baby. On your tables, I welcome a new sponsor, Homes Magazine, and the Homes Magazine team is here. Michael here this morning. I know you might be a bit late from Homes. Who's here from Homes? Wait. Oh, there. Who else? The chief executive officer of Homes Magazine. Thank you for your support, Justin. Really appreciate it. To TV Bank attachment. Where's the attachment? Right there. Stand up, attachment. Give the attachment. TV Bank. Reliance Home Comfort, Jerry Dennis, with Jerry and Jennifer. Jerry and Jennifer. Stand up. Lovely gifts from them. From Jennifer Packle, Kiki. Where's Kiki? Kiki's coming. When Kiki comes in, we'll make a great picture when she comes in. But thank you, Jennifer Packle. Thank you, Bill, Tiffany, and Brian. We were also a little bit later this morning sneaking in. Appreciate their support. Without their support, these great events are a little more challenging to put on. It makes a significant difference. This is the first of our series of 4 through the year of our summit series. This is our economic summit. We've been on Beaulieu for now 7 years, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood. Every year enjoying so much. I'll introduce you more sincerely and effectively. Coming up is in May, you'll have to watch our website for confirmation of dates, is Mike Staver, the renowned psychologist. For those of you who are looking for the inner game of real estate, the mind game of our business, and the operation of your business, and his positioning in the world of psychology and how our own attitudes make a significant difference in the way we act, behave, and profit is quite a significant presentation. So in September, we don't have it fixed yet, but we're inviting Mr. Cole from the New York Times. This will be our technological summit. He's the writer of technology in the New York Times, and an absolute sensation. I had just had the pleasure of hearing him in Las Vegas, and he's entertaining and forthright today on the impact of technology on us and our families and our kids and the relationship of the generations from one to the other. Fascinating speaker and does it while playing the piano. So kind of fun. Don't miss that coming up in September. And then finally, our financial summit at year-end with General Capital and TD Bank and the senior executives of their economic branches to give us that in a nutshell wrap up at the year-end and forward thinking to the following year. So that's our program for 2013. Kind of exciting and really looking forward to it. Well, we've been on our own adventure, our own road of adventure. This is normal. And we opened an office in Hong Kong. Do I have a picture here somewhere? No? Yeah. Where's the lovely Beaulieu? Right there. Thank you. Grace, where's beautiful Grace? Wave, Gracie. Gracie, wave back there, Gracie. And my daughter, Sloan, where's Sloan? Oh, there she's Sloan, so wave. So we went off to fabulous Shanghai to do a presentation on behalf of about 10 of our builders to high net worth individuals in Shanghai. And have done a great relationship with the Industrial Commercial Bank in China and two of China's largest brokers, looking at high net worth individuals investing into Canadian and American real estate. And the first presentation was quite fabulous, and the results are quite incredible. And China's creating a millionaire every 10 minutes. 1.2 billion people. In Shanghai, a city of 23 million. Around it are 6 cities, 30 cities the same size as Toronto. 6 million each, 180 million, around this perimeter of a 23 million population city. The staggering numbers are just overwhelming, incredible. And the wealth generation fabulous. I just want to share with you a couple of thoughts, the things that intrigue me the most about this last year. What do I do wrong? That little arrow there? Yeah. No, that's oh, you got to turn around. No, I don't have to point it anywhere. I'm going to do this good. Great picture of the gang in China, the Sigma Film Club. That was on the deck overlooking at the button in Shanghai, the financial district, that in fact is just created in the last 10 years from zero. So now over 100 towers of condo and office mix that are in fact like this, over 100 stories. Quite absolutely staggeringly overwhelming, like nothing you've ever seen. Now, how do we stop this? This is kind of going through. Just keep going, I want to stop. Stop. No! Don't do that. Does that stop? Okay. No? Need to stop. You need to go up there and do stuff. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Okay. This is. Don't you love technology? That's a train station. The most incredible thing about China is the movement now of creation of wealth, but then the movement of people. And how do you do it? In fact, the world's worst traffic. I've never driven anything like it in my life. You take your life in your hands and on the sidewalk. And as you're walking along the sidewalk, you're dodging the bikes that are coming up on the sidewalk and getting around the cars. And the cars are going every which way. They pay no attention to lines. They pay no attention to lights. They pay no attention to stop, forward, back. They just find space and go in. It's the most incredible experience. You're actually in a car, most of the time just going, ooh! Every taxi ride is taking your life in your own hands. How do you move all these people? High-speed train, infrastructure. Shanghai, in the last 10 years, has completed and built over 400 kilometers of subways in that period, in a decade. 400 kilometers. Toronto was 54 kilometers, and we started in 1954. We built 1 kilometer in 2002 that went over from Young to the shopping center in London. The movement of people and infrastructure is absolutely critical to the survival of any city. You'll see on your table little thing that we're writing called Real Dirt. Real Dirt, which is about one, the dirt gap, which is a demographic analysis, and the other is a little bit of commentary on the market itself. And what we're trying to get at is some of the issues that are around surrounding us within the Toronto market. How does the city compete in the global scene? How does Toronto position itself? One of the cornerstones is infrastructure. That is the train station in Beijing. very short period of time. Hundreds and hundreds of high-speed trains coming out of that station each and every minute. All of them with services that you would see in a first-class airline experience that you and I would take if, not necessarily Air Canada, I think it's much more service. Way more efficient, but streamlined, modern, fast, efficient, on time, comfortable, great food, fabulous service, incredible people skills to try to move. Basically, that was economy, and then I'll come back to that one, but first class. So I strapped myself into first class seat in this train to go to the airport. And from the airport downtown Shanghai, out to the airport. Has anybody been there? Anybody been? So you know that it's an hour and 20 minutes by cab, and you take your life in your own hands by cab. Good highway system, but it's a long way out by cab. And I had to say, I'm going to try this new train called the Magna. It's a magnetic gravitational field train that sits on a concrete structure and runs from downtown out to the airport. It'd be like going from Union Station to Newmarket. It's out on the ocean, but it's that distance, probably 25 miles and 30 miles. Stewardesses were quite the most amazing experience to be looked after. But there's the train, and this particular train, or one like it, isn't quite the one. This is one like it. And you sit in that first class seat, and you buckle in, and up in front of you, you saw maybe 5 miles early slides, a little ticker tape showing the speed of the train. And it starts off at 50 kilometers an hour, 70 kilometers an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, and you're right downtown. And then it goes, and you slam back into your seat. You're in a seatbelt in this first class. And we hit 400 kilometers an hour. 400, that's 240 miles for those old folks like 80 miles per hour that had to figure that out. Over 200 miles an hour. I was at the airport in 7 minutes. Union Station to Newmarket. 7 minutes. It was so fantastic. I went back and didn't get it. I didn't do it. I got back. I went back and this is where we're back again. It cost $4 in the economist currency. They're committed to infrastructure to move people because of the pressures of their numbers, not dissimilar to our own, but at a different scale. And if there's anything to be learned, I know that perhaps the human rights aren't the area to be learned too much about, because that in itself is a bit frightening. That's a subject all unto itself another time. But the embodiment of this kind of new capitalism and the ability to generate wealth and then take that wealth and turn it back into infrastructure is a great lesson for us in Southern Ontario to the GTA. Hopefully that message will keep hammering away on it. Meanwhile, back in Canada, when I came back, of course, my last trip, there was 3 feet of snow on the ground and a 14-hour flight. We were feeling a little bit foggy and kind of out of it, but so I picked up some of my favorite slides of winter because that's what we do as part of our life racing. So free snow U-Haul was one I signed in on the neighborhood. I thought that was great. Of course, everyone said do the job right the first time and never have to do it again. Shovel some up, they did driveway. If you build it, they will come. This is a highway in Calgary that Lisa, you brought me for. This is an actual Caribou transit line. And that's special to Canada. Now, that's infrastructure. That's a committed to infrastructure. Absolutely. So we watch prices, we do that stuff. Now, this was taken at a Caribou Mall. No one should be that guy. That's a real picture of Caribou, and some people love it around it. And I think that's neat. Isn't that neat? And I thought this was classic. This is a star. Look at that. It's like Canadian in the water. I'm not going to put up my shirt. I just think that's so great. Is that great or what? I'm just being a treat. Now, this is at home to this down in Toronto. Now, this one is very cute. Couldn't play, you know. You couldn't. I hope you made it. I hope you got around it. It's a Canadian winter. That's our Canadian thing. The beer store, the rainbow. Where else is it? Melbourne. It happens there all the time. The pot of gold at our beer store. The roads are wicked slippery, eh? That's Steve Sutton just retired and was moved to Laredo. For those who remember Steve, we're going to come back in 2 weeks. And cute little shot. Now this is unbelievable. That's a Huntsville. I don't know, where you find that kind of infrastructure, but that's really strong. This is people like to tow your car, make sure you never park overnight in that lot again. It's just at Home Depot in Ajax. That was fun. See you next Saturday. Typical Northern Ontario, how accommodating we are. And then I thought this was a perfect shot, right? This is last week on the Humber River as I sent out. There's guys sitting there, meanwhile back. We have to celebrate winter. It's part of our heritage. But I would complain. That's why we live here, the greatest city on earth. We have to have a few celebrations every now and again about how we survive and thrive in that kind of environment. Okay, so what about the market? You'll see an interesting little piece there that we wrote in January on where we thought the market was going and why it's back tomorrow, as we call it. There's an article yesterday, 5 reasons why not to buy a condo. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday doing a broad synopsis of what's wrong with the condo market here in Toronto, or at least its entire real estate market, with the premise for most, of course, Maclean's magazine, as we saw this January issue, the crash is coming. Each of these are based upon a premise that is interesting, and I asked Alan earlier, Beaulieu today, to make a commentary about it in relationship with the U.S. and much of it is related and often taken in the U.S. that this is U.S. market reflection of what had happened and will have happened here. And Alan perhaps remarked on that. But the press loves a carpet. They love a drive-by shooting. They love a disaster. And they find a particular point of variance and they exaggerate, extrapolate, and exploit it. Not in the real estate section, of course. But certainly on the editorial. Are you putting in the darkness? Okay, that's okay, look at that. Leave that alone. Leave those lights alone, that's good. So, please be reflective each time you read these stories. The position the press is trying to sell papers and is trying to take that bad news and exploit a market position at that moment in time. And most of it is absolute bunk. Most of it is absolute, complete, and abject bunk. And have taken singular elements of a market condition and exaggerated, exploited, and used it to attract our attention through the headline, 5 reasons why not to buy a condo. So, you can't see these from back in the back of the room, but you can see the element of the chart. The blue line is low-rise, the red line is high-rise. That takes you through from 2000 to 2012. You can see that peak through 10 and 11 on the red line, that peak of 10 and 11. And that's not normal. Normal is look how steady that line was for the period from 2000 to 2008. In fact, the actual absorption of high-rise condos within the GTA for 12 years has averaged 16,560 units a year. And if I take out the 2 years of aberration, it's averaged about 15,500. We can actually deliver 15,000 units a year. That's normal. That's the measurement of which normalcy should be made. Not against the peak of 2011 at 28,000, or 2010 at 22,000 units, that we're an aberration of one of solid demand, low speculative positioning, and yes, we overbuild that market, and yes, we will now go back to a more prudent level of absorption and continuing consistent sales. But it's not a crash, and it's not a disaster. The gold article yesterday's pinpoints that condo sales prices are down in January. That's they were down by 1% from 321,000 to 319,000. So and in January's not enough to measure anything. It's the lowest level of sales absorption we had in the entire year. It's normal when it comes out of a December period with very low supply rate at the moment. Although the article was the buy side of the condo resale up by 28%. 13.8%, but yes, this new supply's up. That's normal. The overall gross supply of product on the market in the GTA right at this moment is only 14,500 units, and market imbalance is 25,000. We're way undersupplied, and that's normal. It's not an abnormality in the January period to see that kind of a picture or a presentation, or a very instant price. And the overall price was up by 4.3%. Why stand there and yell and share straight no, because it's going to fall back down and be a very stable, steady year. This year, the high-rise market will absorb something in the neighborhood of that 15, 16, maybe 17,000 units. And yes, this is a great time to buy. This is a great time to buy. I'll show you why. Density. All I want you to look at is that gray line as it folds down towards the bottom, and see how consistent that sales in, what's that, Alex? That sales in December? Yeah, it's a December sales figure, so it's a consistency over 12 years, and it's showing inventory. The gray line is inventory. So that's low-rise inventory. It's at the lowest level since we've been keeping records since 1979. The lowest level since we've been keeping records since 1979. Say it again. The lowest level we've been keeping records since 1979. There's 7,200 units available on the market, and the market absorbing over 12,000 a year, and should be absorbing 20. But because of government decree, restriction on land development, and hold back on supply, our official government impact on our marketplace, by the way, all by political decree. The growth plan is about a no growth plan. We're in the tightest supply situation we've ever had in low rise. High rise in the next picture, that gray line again, you can see climbing up a little bit. Average is around 14,000. 15,000. It's about a 1 year supply over the last 12 years. It's now 20. And that's a gross number. But that's an even in itself to see. And what you'll read about is, oh my God, with all those cranes across the city of Toronto, 474 projects, how can it be that we would have all these, we're going to have all these empty buildings? The blue line is what you want to look at. I go to the next one. You can't see it from back here, but neither can I, so I gotta go look at this. The red component in the middle of that is high-rise under construction and percentage sold. Over 80% of the product under construction, I think the number is 88%. Under construction, percentage sold, 88%. 88% sold. The inventory in high-rise, often talk about over 20,000 units, is mostly in those of pre-construction just been released in the last 12 to 14 months, maybe a little longer for some. The actual standing inventory, finished, completed, is less than 7,000 units in a market absorbing 15 a year. There's no issue with inventory, built inventory in Toronto. No issue at all. In fact, it's a very tight supply of built form. 61% of those under construction, yet to be under construction, in a pre-sale situation, are sold with 20 to 25% deposits. 20 to 25% is percentage options. Very big capital. Big chunks of sales. Yes, there's 55,000, 53,000 units under construction. And yes, we're trying to deliver 23 to 25,000 this year. We won't. The story of 213 will be delays in the marketplace, delays and delays and delays. There's a lot of that, and just won't be able to keep up the delivery side. And those 6,000 units that are sitting there unsold in construction will be a great time to buy, because I'll be trying to clean up that building and get through a market that's going through a change and flux as the demand has softened a little bit and the press pounds on the psychology of the consumer and the federal government pulls back on the entry-level buyer. There'll be some great deals available on constructive built product, a great time to buy. On the pre-construction side, or the pre-sale side, possibly as high as 30% of the projects that are currently out there won't go forward.
They may not be able to achieve their sales test, that 70, perhaps not even 80% of sales test. New projects entering the market will come at a new sharp price level. It can be done at all, will be done at a new sharp price level. And the froth, the foam of 211 and 10 will kind of ease out of the marketplace. But not too much to come. Most major players, some of them here in this room, kind of holding back, watching market trends, seeing where the market goes. So what we'll experience over the next first half of this year is going to be strong incentives, great packaging, fabulous time to buy, our product is built for. Those that are close, those that are at the 60% level of sales, will be doing the same thing to try to get to their sales test. That'll be great for the consumer. It'll take the froth out of the market. Overall, you might see some modest change in the actual average MLS sale price. It will go down a little bit, but it's not, there's no crash. It'll be an adjustment, it'll be a reflection of the softening demand. So just be very careful on what you read. Be skeptical. Don't believe any of it. Ask your own questions. Look carefully at the data. Try to see where the agenda is, where it's coming from. And you and I are the last line of defense in this marketplace to try to overcome some of the negatives that are compounded to our consumer. When we're there at point of sale, whether you're in the banking business, you're in the developer, whether you're in sales, whether you're in trade, we're all in the sales business, and we're all in the line of defense to show and justify the nature of what a great city this is and the positives of the world. We've just put a good news page on our website. It's right on the front page called Good News. Alex has been a little hard to find, haven't they, all those good news stories for Alex. He's wave to me. Alex Rooney, who's our good news reporter. And he's finding articles from all over, anywhere that we can, whether it's UK, US, or Canada, or Toronto, or Richmond Hill. And we'll post those on our web regularly. You can go there, just get a little juice in the morning. It's kind of fun. Some good stuff. It's very positive along with our own pieces that we're doing. So we need that. You need to clipper. You need to be a clipper, a news clipper, or a blogger, or a put-off online. And the minute you find a new sentiment, and the minute you have it with others, share it. And send that around. If you're on LinkedIn or your Facebook or your Twitter, get the good news going. You're the last line of defense. Alan Beaulieu, good friend, brilliant. Oh, I do. I have a couple of things I have to do. Oh gosh. Oh, I do. Oh, no. Stop it. Is there next slide? Well, then I don't even know who they are. And the National Association of Home Builders in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, many small projects were great events. I'm not going to go through them all, but there were very few people awards. They do some very special ones on the sales side and the management side. And there were 2 Toronto representatives. These are over 1,200 submissions in each category from all over the world. It's an international builder show, and it's a very just incredible, distinct award to be recognized within. It's incredible to be amongst your peers at any time, but to be recognized in such a best group, literally from around the world, kind of special. There were 2 people who were winners at the NGA Awards from Toronto, and I want to recognize them today. And the one, the director of marketing, said he was going to try to make it, and he may not, because I didn't have his award for him, so we were doing that. But no, Sean Richardson from Liberty Development. Is Sean here? Is Sean here? Well, let's give him a cheer anyway. Let's give him a cheer. And this is a great accomplishment for Liberty. Nearly 1,800 unit sales last year in a whole variety of projects, and just a phenomenal director of their marketing sales department there, who did a tremendous job. In the sales category, now there's nothing better than this. I love this. It's the best award there is, Rookie of the Year. We were all rookies once in whatever career we had, and we just had the distinct pleasure of never knowing how to say no. And because you don't know how to say no, you often say yes. And you do more business than anybody because you don't know what the rules are. And you're not big rig is special, just the best there is. I love rookies. James LaFranco was Rookie of the Year. It's a much prettier picture than me. Congratulations, James. Then something else happened just a couple of weeks ago, and I was told about it, and I went, oh my goodness gracious, isn't that an achievement? And, oh yeah, you can do the click after. This individual just retired. I don't think she will. I think she'll find a way to have influence in this world that's greater than all of us together. Because in the past 16 years, I've known her actually more than that, probably 24 years from her early days in Ottawa with some little tiny builder called Minto, and then she moved to Toronto and took on a marketing and sales job at some startup firm in Oakville. They were doing custom housing, and they were banging out a couple of units 16 years ago, and that company was called Madeline. And Mary Jane Court decided to say, I'm retired, at least from the Madeline world, 16 years. I think my quick calculation is nearly 50,000 units in that period. What an influence on our marketplace. What a powerful role she played in the generation of new homeowners into their life, new life direction and thrill, and what a great job she did. And if leading Madeline means they'll just slow down a little, leave some to the rest of us, that's pretty good. Congratulations, Mary Jane. This is probably, you know, I was trying to think that I could you would give after all these great accomplishments and do find worthwhile. So here's a morning at the Stillwater Spa at the Park Plaza Hotel, and you can kind of kick back and just enjoy and go, okay, am I ready to go? Alan
Actually, I have one more thing from my sister and I, Ellie. Ellie and I wanted to congratulate her, and we want to congratulate her with 50 years, Ellie.
Oh my God. I'm only joking. This year celebrating. This is fabulous. We are celebrating PMA 50 years this year, 1963 to 2013. That's a great longevity. Oh yeah, here and now they're giving me my own bobblehead, which is very cool. My own bobblehead. That's very cool. I want to just take a moment of that and say, in 1963, one of our first clients, it was actually late 1963, early 1964, had 4 semis that they couldn't unload. It was one of their first projects in Streetsville. And these 4 semis had languished and languished and languished. And I can remember my father saying, well, we are the only broker now in Toronto with an arson department. We can clean up that problem. And we took on those 4 semis, and I remember because I had to go out there as a young man in 1963. I had to drive because my father kept losing his license. And I drive out to look at these 4 semis. It was obvious why they had not sold. And I can't go into details. They were offensive. They were not particularly good. But took on the challenges as I want to do from time to time. There is never, right, there's never a project you can't find the answer to, which is never a project. We were finding the answer to one day, what was there. In 1964, that first client was 4 semis industry still was Monarch. And today, 50 years later, Monarch's still a very proud partner with us and still serving that today. It's a very special relationship. And I'm thrilled today that Greg Goose from Phoenix, their Vice President of Marketing worldwide, almost worldwide, is here with us. So thanks, Greg, for coming. And thanks for being our visit. And I love that. Okay, Greg, I'm on an announcement. Alan Beaulieu. I didn't know how to spell the word subprime when I met Alan Beaulieu. I never heard of it before. I didn't even know what it was. He first brought it to our attention in 2000, late 06, our early session in 06, and then into 07, and then into the whole scene of what we saw coming in terms of the issues of housing in the United States and their economic malaise and what they went through. He's always had a great insightful positioning in his relationship between Canada and the United States. He's recently opened an office in Brussels. His company is ITR Economics. The Trends Research is what he does, his economic research. He's a consultant to businesses around the world, major corporations, because he created the most fantastic model that allowed you to see your position in a business cycle. And he took that position with the business cycle and then allowed you to look at where you can be and how you can both prevent, achieve, stand back, go forward at the moment in time and where you are. It's a great planning direction. He's a newsletter. If any of you subscribe, you should. Absolutely spectacular. And it's under ITReconomics.com. He writes a blog twice a week. He wrote one this morning on the relationship between Canada and the United States and how the U.S. should pay a little more attention to some of the financial rules in Canada. He's asked this morning whether I can get Canadian citizenship because he thinks he's going to get thrown out of the U.S. Alan's insight and interpretations have been dead on, and he makes a presentation to us this morning, both from a world perspective and American and Canadian perspective that I know you'll enjoy. And he does it with great aplomb and humor. He has 6 children and 5 grandchildren. So I said to him, he's overcome the dirt gap that I was writing about this past week, and so he's making his part to improve the demographic position of the United States. Would you give a great big TV PMA summit welcome to the
Thank you, Andy. It's very nice to be back with you all. I hope you had a good year. I hope you had a good year. Let's get to start enthused. We're talking economics. It only goes down from here, so we're going to start enthused. It's going to be a good year. Just to let you know up front, in case you had someplace you had to go off to, 2013 is going to be, it's going to have some challenges. We're going to talk about those. But there's fear in the air about a crash that's not going to occur. There's no economic collapse in the United States that's going to occur. We'll talk about all the reasons why. But basically, we'll see, as Andy very correctly stated, we're not seeing normal activity, not bubble activity. And normal activity gives us all a chance to make some money. It means that business will be okay. It means that we'll be able to go forward and life is good when things are normal. And that's the general outlook. Now, I want you to have some confidence in that outlook, so I thought I'd bring along what we said last year. So you can have some reason to believe, now, because I'm going to be asking you to spend money before we're done, and not on me, but on yourself. I want you to believe in the forecast so that you will get ready for what's coming, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. Basically, as you look down through this list, that GDP is the U.S. GDP, that forecast was put in place in my company 12 months ago, right on target, 0.4% deviation 12 months into the future. You could go down 3 lines from there. Canada's industrial production outlook that we put in place 8 months ago, no deviation from forecast. Go down 2 lines from there, that's Canada, California. Canada, housing starts. We put that forecast in place 8 months ago, 0.6% deviation from forecast. I mean, the methodology that Andy was talking about works, and our ability to parse out what's coming so that you can have some actionable base is what we're talking about. And our accuracy on all industries globally for 2012 was 96.2%. So the methodology works. I'm not going to share a lot of the methodology with you today. I'll share some of it, but a lot of it is boring. What really matters is the results. So let's jump right into it. Here's a comparison of the U.S. and here's a comparison of the U.S. in Canada to the U.S. And on the top right, you can see where we're at. And for the quarter, for each country, the rate of growth has slowed down. Now, that's certainly not the way we want it to go. For the fourth quarter of 2012, both economies were cooling off. Those trend lines are moving lower. These are rates of change through time. So we're seeing that there's this sluggishness developing. So of course it shows up in housing numbers. Of course it begins to show up in sales. And it is easy to straight line forecast. It's actually the thing that we do best as human beings, it would seem, is straight line forecast. So the fact that it's been slowing down, we just want to project that into the future and go, oh, it's just going to continue. There's no hope. And we all begin to sound like Winnie the Pooh's little friend Eeyore. You know? Well, it was a custom economy to begin with. You know, just kind of this falling apart. Oh my gosh. I can tell you that the slowdown is going to quickly dissipate. And we're going to see that as the year 2013 unfolds. We're actually going to see a pickup in speed in the second half of the year. Now, it's not going to be vibrant. It's not going to be a bubble. It's not going to be the roaring 2007 years, but it's going to be faster. And you're going to see more activity. And then we're going to see a slowdown for 2014. I want you to concentrate on a few things that I've annotated here. Down the way, Bob, you see how wealthy you are as Canadians. Now, Canadians are the 24th wealthiest nation per capita per person in the world. The U.S. in case one comparison is 12, but it's only 49,000 per capita. They have to be living in Bermuda, which is number 4, in order to really get the low single-digit numbers, which means a high financial base of very little people. And that's how you create really high numbers. Luxembourg is right near the top of the list. So we're talking, as far as real nations goes, Canada is a wealthy nation. Now, sometimes we can lose sight of that. There's a psychological factor in that. If we start losing sight, if we start thinking that wealth doesn't matter, then you view the future differently. But you have to understand, Canadians are very wealthy people. Canadians are essentially very happy people, too, according to happiness indices that I look at. And Canadians have a very bright future. Now, Andy's right. I was just blogging this morning. I wrote it yesterday. We published today. To about 10,000 folks at the moment, that Canada has a lot of lessons for the world to learn, the United States and Europe and other parts of the world. You have a really solid banking base, you have a really solid housing base, you have a really good population base, although as I've annotated for you, fertility rate is not good. And Amy noted that in the paper. We did not coordinate this, but we're both concerned about fertility rates in Canada. That's a very personal decision. I mean, this is a national statistic. We need more children. What you do with that is, is up to you. Why don't Canadians have more children? The fertility rate is higher in the U.S. So, I mean, we're neighbors. We have so much in common. So why don't we, here in Canada, have the same fertility rate that we need to maintain native-born population? I'm interested in it. Cold? Is that what you said? I live in New Hampshire, it's cold, I have 6 children, we can rule that one. And I travel 200 days a year too, so factor that in. Too expensive! I hear that a lot from Europeans, especially in Germany. I ask Germans why they don't have children, they go, they're too expensive and they're a pain in the neck. You can't deny either one, but they're both very true. But too expensive is a relative term, which is why I started with the fact that one of the wealthiest nations in the world, right here in Canada, that as Canadians, we can't afford more children, then who can? So that's a social issue I can't address as an economist, but Andy's paper on the subject is dead on, so I encourage you to read that paper, because here in Canada, we need to have more children. Now you can backfill immigration. Canada does a great job of backfilling immigration. As you've probably been following the papers, it's for younger people, that's the thing you made out of paper that folds and has ink on it, but that's a different subject. In the United States, we're going through this thing about immigration and trying to upgrade our immigration policies, because we need to also backfill, because we don't have enough of the young population. Second, and they on their excuses, and they on their excuses that. In Canada, there are more people over 55 than under the group. It's the first time in the United States that's also occurred. More people over 55 than under the age of 18. And as that occurs in both countries, it means that the stability of the nation if you are over that 50 years of age, really over 55, you are a problem. You're going to want to be taken care of as you get older. You're going to want health care. You're going to want prescription drugs. You're going to want to live comfortably, and the government is expected to help you with all that. And without enough taxpayers, that means all of you that are younger, there's looking around, there's a lot of younger ones. Look at the gentleman right over there with the blue and white shirt, you're just kind of popping an eye. You, sir, well, what comes to mind is stinks to be you, sir, because you're going to have to work really hard all of your life to support Andy. In the style to which he's grown accustomed. How are you going to do that? He shrugs. That's exactly what he's doing. Because there's not enough of you to take care of you. How does a nation overcome that? Interested in solutions. How do you think a nation overcomes that? What's that? Something about population, but I grew up in the 70s and I'm still listening to the 70s. The ringing may won't go away. What did you say about population? You don't want to repeat it, okay? Well, you have to change the plan. Or you have to develop the Arizona attitude, one or the other. Now, change the plan just means that sooner or later you have to say to a very wealthy aging population, because it's true, it's really a wealthy population that's retiring. I'm sorry, but you have to pay more of your own money. And a large block of people who are retired who vote aren't going to like that a lot, but that's really what has to be done. Or you have to keep pushing up the retirement age. So you either change the benefits or you push up the retirement age, or you develop the Arizona mentality. And the Arizona mentality is pretty simple. You get old, I'm feeling so good, you wander off into the desert and never come back. You're over 50, you're here today, which one are you walking out for? All right, if you're younger like that, tell me over there. There are younger people here. What's the solution to the problem? We die. All of us over the age of 50 will eventually die. In 30, 35 years, we are no longer a problem. That's cold, that's hard. Economics is heartless, by the way. To be an economist, you really have to have no feelings. I'm male, and I'm a New Englander, which means I really have no feelings. So, the reality is, there's a solution to Canada's problem, the U.S. problem, the demographic problems that Andy mentioned in the paper, but that is in 30 to 35 years, the problem will be dead. So very lot, it is a long time, but I want to give that young hope. So that when he asks you, how are you feeling today, you know what he's looking at. Are we closer to the solution? In the meantime, what has to happen in any economy, U.S., Canadian, Singapore, doesn't matter. What has to happen is that the plan changes so taxes go up. I think what we're going to see is that taxes are going to go up. And as taxes go up, it just means that all of us as individuals who pay taxes and all of us as business who pay taxes should just understand that tax revenue has to increase because the rate has to go up to make up those taxes. The basis is increasing taxes now. And the extent is going to increase mathematically, there's no way around it. So expect your taxes to go up in the years to come. And that just means we have to start factoring that into our free cash flow, into our plans for the future. Okay, if you love your country, have no children. If you waiting for a solution, it comes naturally, but in the meantime, pay more taxes. That's the bottom line of all that. Canada is very much attached to the United States of America. The United States of America is attached to Canada. We're the best of friends. We depend on each other. We need each other. Canada's relationship with the U.S. is shown in GDP. It's also shown in industrial production. I have a forecast there for 13 and 14 for industrial production in Canada, which is mining, manufacturing, electricity generation. Canada has not fared as well as the U.S. in terms of that segment of the economy. A stronger Canadian dollar has certainly hurt that as we have gone through the last year. The stiffening of the Canadian dollar has made the U.S. dollar as a factor in Canadian tied to the U.S. and the sluggishness of the economy has certainly had an impact. The U.S. is exporting more goods. But what's going to change that is that Canada's new relationship, developing into the new relationship with Europe, is certainly going to be advantageous. You will get there faster than the U.S. will get there. We will find that Canada is able to export goods to Europe in a free tariff situation much faster than the U.S. can possibly negotiate it. And that will prove advantageous to the nation. That will provide more jobs, more opportunity, more economic growth as we go innate ability to do that and succeed. It's a very balanced economy between oil and agriculture and industrial production. And that balance speaks well for your prospects as a nation as we go forward. And those prospects work well for us here in Ontario. The relationship between Ontario and Canada is very visible. So all the good things going on for Canada also speak well for all of us here in Ontario. And the upside activity that we're going to see is evident in the slide that those rates of change, the year-over-year comparison, are trending lower. But the leading indicators, the activity that will be going on in the U.S. will provide a demand pull, that will be going on in Europe will provide a demand pull. We're going to see more good things happening in Ontario shipments as we go into the second half of this year. Now, I want to also show you that there's been less dependence on the U.S. as we've gone forward. Canadian exports to the U.S. are now 73.1% of all exports. That's down from 76.8% before the Great Recession. Now, that's extremely important. The more that Canadian exports are divorced from the U.S. economy, the strengthier, the stronger we will be here in Canada, the better off we will be here in Canada. So a made in Canada that's exported to Europe, that's exported to the rest of the world, is extremely important. And that means that there has to be a cost competitiveness that is brought about. That cost competitiveness is absolutely necessary. It has caused a disruption in people's thinking, in people's lives in the U.S. It's not a pleasant thing to have a cost competitiveness forced upon a nation. But it is absolutely vital going forward that every Canadian firm remembers that efficiency, especially now, is extremely important in the face of a stronger Canadian dollar that's only going to get stronger in the future compared to the U.S. dollar, and the need for people made in Canada here all over the world. And that will happen as businesses spend money on investing in themselves, needing less labor, and having every other efficiency device coming behind. And as we do that, we find that the nation grows and more jobs are actually created. Because on the surface, it sounds like less jobs are being created. That's nonsense. The more that we drive efficiencies, the more that businesses grow. We actually see an increase in labor in more areas as we go forward. So congratulations on the negotiations. The future looks good for shipments and manufacturing. Now, the leading indicator, which I use for the Canadian economy, is not looking real healthy at the moment. Those trend lines are also looking down. And that suggests that the Canadian economy will be softening as we go through the next several quarters. I need those rates of change to turn. Now, the same thing happened in the U.S., so that little interim movement, that softness is not unexpected. And what we're going to find is that the leading indicator is going to begin to poke its head up in the next few months. We're going to see that turn, so that we'll see a little bit of ascent, GDP increase in the second half of 2013. When we look at the Purchasing Managers Index, I begin to see some of that sunshine break through. See that top orange line, how that is beginning to curl up? That doesn't look like much to you, but it's important to me. The fact that it's above the blue line is mathematically important. The fact that it's moving up says that things are beginning to get a little better. There is some sunshine breaking out in the manufacturing sector in the Canadian environment. And that means good things for the economy, it means good things for Ontario, it means good things for jobs, it means good things then for housing as we go forward. Don't take that line as being anything less than encouraging as we look at what will be in the future. When we look at durable goods new orders, we're still above durable levels, 5.1% above durable levels, which is stronger than the U.S. Look at the dollar run at the bottom. We're moving up at record high levels. So we see that new orders are strong. We see that there is still a demand pull going on, and that demand pull means the economy continues to expand. And if the economy expands, you do not have a housing collapse. Because as an expanding economy, these jobs are created, income levels are maintained, and the economy will continue to do what's necessary in order to keep the housing industry on a positive footing. When we look at retail trade, the rate of growth of retail trade is only 3.4%. I suppose you could say only, it's a little below average. And the rates of change, the top two trend lines are telling me that things are slowing down in terms of the rate of rise. But look at the bottom blue line, if you would please. We're at record high levels. The person on the street is spending money. The rate of debt is slowing down in terms of household debt increase. We're seeing employment continue in the GTA. We're seeing it continue nationally. And while we are growing a little more hesitant, while we're spending a little less money on When we look at what that means to Ontario, it's the same relationship. It's going to be a slower rate of rise, but still a record spend, which means there are still people out there who have money, who want to spend money, who will be your customers. And that's just a silly fact. I have no idea what happened to that. It got compressed somewhere down there. There's all that information in a solid 2 inches there. And if you look at that, technology is indeed deeply flawed. Okay. Let's look at housing starts. Now, housing starts in Canada on a rate of change basis have moved over to phase C, slower rate of rise, backside of business cycle. Now, you look at that top blue line, and it's certainly moving downward. But notice, next what I had noted, we're still seeing a growth rate of 11.4%. Now, for the last quarter, that's the orange line on top, the rate of growth was a much slower 1.4%. That sluggishness is consistent with the macroeconomic environment. The sluggishness is what's causing, and I heard everything Andy said, and I agree with it, that media headlines are dangerous things. You always have to read past the third or fourth paragraph to find out what's going on with the statistics, where they come from, and all the rest of that. That type of number in any country in the world will generate headlines about an apocalyptic event and how bad this is, and watch out, and don't go away from it. The bottom blue line is more telling. The bottom blue line shows that the number of starts has come up dramatically and has not gone back up to the record high that we had before the recession, but it is not moving down and leveling off. So my job is to forecast for you where it's going to go. And where it's going to go is further up at a mild pace. And I want to tell you why when it comes back to this close success, etc. on face value. One is because the banking system in Canada is the best in the world. Now, you may have got tired of hearing that because it's been the best in the world for years. And the fact that the new head of the central bank, the Bank of England, is Canadian and going to be bringing that mindset over to England is good news for the UK, if he's allowed to stop something successful. That a solid banking system means that you're not going to see the financial collapse that occurred in the U.S. in 2007, 8, and 9. In the U.S., people got tired of paying for their home. Even if they could pay for their home, they got tired of paying for their home because it got worth less than what they owed. That's an important statement. Don't just pull that off. It was worth less than what they owed, so they just tossed the keys on the banker's desk and they walked away. And they rented a home for 3 years, and 3 years later they could buy another home. And that was the only recourse. It was so. In my mind, is a morality issue, and in my mind, it's also an entitlement issue because I've actually had a family member who did that, and when asked about it, said that, well, they never should have sold me that home. So it's their fault, is what happened in the U.S. In Canada, there's no walking away from the home. In Canada, you're required to do this amazing thing. It's called put money down. You say that in the U.S., they go, when did that start? You want me to do what? Maybe 3% down. Maybe some 5% down. Now we've got regulations and they increase, fortunately, so that more money is required and things like that. And also in Canada, there's this wonderful thing where you are not allowed to deduct the mortgage interest on your personal tax. I've been advocating in the U.S. for years that we should not be able to deduct mortgage interest because when you don't deduct the interest off your personal income tax, or to determine personal income tax, there's no incentive to keep mortgage. So you look at a 5-year mortgage and a 10-year mortgage, you have every incentive in the world to pay that thing off as fast as you can. That provides stability, that provides equity, that provides for a vested interest in the home. That provides for people who think of this not as an investment strategy or a tax dodge, but as a home. And that makes for an entirely different culture of stability. In the U.S., it's just a device that can be left behind. And so the government in the U.S. has tilted people culturally to walking away from their homes by saying it's not their fault, by wanting to bail them out and providing a tax incentive to pay for these mortgages. Not the case in Canada. No price collapse. No panic. Will it return to normal? absolutely, it reverts the mean. Will it seem odd compared to the 2011 and 12 boom years? Yes. Just understand it's good. It's solidifying. It's an absorption rate that we can all prosper under, take money, and utilize as we go forward. And it's the U.S. that wasn't doing it right, which is why I cannot money Canadian passport. Because those things are not popular in the U.S. I remember, I'm not sure how many years ago, it was early then, somebody afterwards came up to me, and I know it was within the last 5 years, because it was after President Obama was elected, and said, you know, we were always the socialist little brother to the north, to the U.S. He says, it's amazing to see how our big brother has ran right past us and becomes a socialist. I was reading the paper today, comments on President Obama's State of the Union speech, and how the Canadian piece was talking about how dangerous this was, and how you can't raise the minimum wage and expect to create jobs, actually cost people their jobs, and how you cannot grow the size of government and tax people and expect to create a middle class. It was a really encouraging piece of news. It was really an encouraging article. You know what goes on in the U.S. when we talk like that? Guess what goes on in the U.S. when we talk like that? You're labeled as an uncaring Republican. And you're told that you have no relevance and that you are only concerned about the wealth. Okay. So which housing structure is going to be better for years to come? We need to be excited about the potential. Or this groundwork is set for a long-term run in Canada. The other reason I want to have a Canadian passport is because nobody hates a Canadian. It's the best passport in the world to travel on, which is why my office is in Brussels, because nobody hates fellas. They don't stand long in the face of adversity in government armies, but nobody hates fellas. Canadian housing starts in Ontario is the same trend. So take everything I just said about Canada and you come to Ontario. The immigration is still going on. People are coming. The population is growing. As the population has grown in 2012, it will continue to grow in 2013. Income levels are holding. There's nothing that suggests we're at a crisis situation. As we look particularly at Ontario housing starts, we see that the rates of change are in the same position, but not as negative as they are for all of Canada on the 12 rate of change. For all of Canada, it was 11.something%. Here it's 14.9% year-over-year growth. The bottom blue line is actually that little upward tilt to it that we didn't see for all of Canada. So sales were weak of late. Housing starts are over slow. We're going to find a little more inventory creep in. The absorption rate's going to go down a little, but there is actually no crisis here in Ontario, and there's no crisis in the GTA. Average prices are doing well in Ontario, up 3.6% year-over-year. You can see the comparisons to other cities and in comparison to the country as well as to the U.S. Housing is expensive, but desirable in the nation's largest city. Forbes listed Toronto as the top 10 economic cities in the world. This is a place where people want to be. This is a place where things are happening. So, of course, it demands a high price. And that high price is the demand, the pull is going to remain attractive as we go forward. Good things going on. As we look at what's happening across Toronto, particularly, you can see that the growth rate has been healthy at 6%. It's not going to continue at 6%. You can see the other cities, as opposed to the provinces, are posting gains, except for Vancouver. Drug trade is down, and Vancouver is seeing a slight reduction. Commercial construction, the rates of change are on top. They're beginning to turn the corner as well. As those rates of change are going up, because that commercial construction recession is coming to an end. And with the macroeconomic forecast that I have, it's not going to be vibrant commercial construction, but it's going to plateau, stabilize, and by the time we get to 2015, it will be positive again. And the exchange rate that we now have at parity is going to shift to a stronger Canadian dollar as we go forward. That obviously makes it harder for exports into the U.S. As time goes on. But it's going to be a very slow process because the Canadian dollar is not going to all of a sudden strengthen by 5–10%. It'll just be by inches as time goes on for the very simple reason that the Canadian balance sheet is so much better off than the U.S. balance sheet. And through time, the Canadian dollar is viewed as much more stable than the U.S. dollar, and interest rates are going to remain a little more attractive in the future. So everything that I know how to look at says that as we go forward, Canada remains a very attractive investment, and that the shift in the dollar, Canadian dollar to US dollar, will be gradual and without a dramatic change, without a shock of any kind. It's something that can be adjusted to in terms of exports and cross-border relationships. The consumer price index is benign at the moment. There is no systemic problem in the near term. In the United Country, what we know is that China is going to be bringing some inflationary pressures to the construction market in 2013. New construction that begins in 2013 will be facing higher material costs if they haven't already been locked in. That's because China is, and this is where Indian and part company a little bit, China is going on a massive stimulus package, spending spree right now. They're spending over the equivalent of over $1 trillion in cleaning up their environment, which is necessary because a lot of our pollution problems in North America come from China, atmospheric drift. About 30% of the mercury pollution, by the way, on the western side of Canada comes from China's atmospheric drift. We can thank them later. They're building more high-speed trains, which those are wonderful pictures. It's a wonderful experience. But I was looking at the platform, and I was looking at the trains, and Andy was there, I was not. But the numbers as he showed that every day Chinese don't ride the high-speed trains. It's more than they can afford. It's a luxury that they can't afford. So they're building more high-speed trains that the local population will tend not to use. And they're building a massive amount of new homes when they already have a massive inventory. You can Google those cities in China and see. So they're building more of those cities for people not to live in those homes. But that will bid up copper prices, plastic prices, all kinds of prices as we look at the 2013 as they build more homes for people not to live in. The future of China in the near term is of mild inflationary pressures. Let me touch on China's long-term view of this stuff, that's all I have. China is a vibrant nation. He's absolutely right. China has lots going for it. He's absolutely right. They can do amazing things in short periods of time. Absolutely right. We can do that when they don't really stand on human rights, people's rights, and when you just wake up one day and have a decision. You know, go to the building, we don't do anything. You know, that kind of thing. So it's a vastly different environment. But understand something, please. Let me counterbalance the positives that India actually gave with the negatives. They have a one-child policy, which is officially been rescinded in function, that has created an imbalance of males and females. 125 million more young men than women. So, as they're under the age of 25. As they get older, what's lacking if you have 125 million men without women? What's lacking is children. Science is proven. You need one of each. Doesn't matter how expensive they are, doesn't matter if they're paying that, you don't have a woman around, you're not having any children. So the problem only gets worse as we go forward. What happens in a population of 1.4 billion people when you don't have children being born is that the upside down, the aging that needs to be taken care of against the tax base is much more pointed than it is in Canada, much more pointed than it is in the U.S. So as it's much more pointed as they go forward, that means in a generation it begins to topple. What happens when a very large nation like China begins to topple? People get nervous. Foreign direct investment flees, business people run away. So what I'm suggesting is that having an office in Hong Kong is a great idea. It will attract all kinds of wealthy people for a generation because the wealthy in China are beginning to look for ways to leave. The wealthy in China are looking for ways to exit. So to have an office there is brilliant because you give them a place to put their money and a place to go. Everyone should be pitching on the team. But understand that in a generation, China's problems are becoming global. It's not outside the realm of possibility that the U.S. and China will move into a Cold War that will just escalate this kind of thing. Which is not a long shot for anybody, but that's getting down to the reality. One of the ways that you can see that coming, by the way, is the fact that the Chinese are fighting the Japanese over those islands in China Sea. That's a lot. The world knows how allied Japan and the U.S. are. So you test the water and hope by poking at the island and see what happens. And the U.S. response But then again, we're in Canada, so it's not that big of a concern. And, you know, one of your members explained this to me very eloquently about 6 years ago, why we never worried about the pull forward product in the U.S. And these are his words, not mine. He said, government always had a frozen tundra, why would they want another one? His words, not mine. But in whole world with China, obviously impacts the world. As prices go up and availability of goods, et cetera, as we go forward. And not that they should ever develop or should be more than they kind of a whole other issue. Which is something that our children, that need to face. Okay. I'm going to go on from there. Hopefully I haven't impressed you terribly with that. I just let you know that it's not all sunshine and flowers in China. There's a lot of instability and a lot of poverty. Okay, natural gas prices are going to remain soft. Natural gas prices are going to see very little in the way of upward movement as we go forward. Fracking is going on in China. Fracking is going on in Poland. It's going on in the UK. It's going on around the world. We're going to find stability around the world in terms of energy because of fracking, and the high pressure extraction is going to be a benefit to mankind as we go forward. There is no margin to detrimental economic impact. It's not an environmental issue. This is actually beneficial to the climate change folks because there are less wells, so natural gas is less polluting than oil. So all of this should bode well for the world as we go forward. We're not going to see dramatic climb in natural gas prices, so the consumers will not be taking it on the chin either. When we look at what's happening in the money markets, we see that Canada is getting a little more of interest than in the U.S., slightly above the going rate for the money market in the U.S. That's a good thing. That speaks to the Canadian strength. You're not going to see a lot of upward movement in interest rates as we go forward. There is no long-term threat. There is no long-term potential for short-term potential, for a jump. Now, the U.S. Federal Open Market Committee, part of the central banking system, has said that rates in the U.S. are going to go up 400 basis points in the future. It's a very safe forecast because 400 basis points means they go back to the historical mean. Everything doesn't mean, but they did not say how long that will take. I'd argue ITR that will take about 5 years, beginning in 2015, so it's really a 3.5-year movement. From the beginning of 15 to about late 18, we're going to see interest rates go about 400 basis points. That means that mortgage rates start to go up when we get to 2015. So today's current low mortgage rates are going to dissipate as we go into the future. We're going to see that interest rates move in the U.S. and in Europe. We're going to give lenders here in Canada the room that they need to raise rates as well. We're going to see that the central bank raises rates as well in the light of inflationary pressures. You know, that upward movement on rates is something that will eventually negatively impact the housing industry. But at first, it's actually a boom to the housing industry. Because when inflation comes and the prices of products start moving up, people go, "I'm buying." And then when essentially mortgage rates go up, they go, "I really better buy them," before interest rates start going up and become unaffordable. So a move in interest rates, first in the U.S. and then in Canada, is a good thing for the housing industry, becomes a negative by the time we get to about the middle of 2018. In between then, it's an incentive for people to buy more property. And we're going to enjoy it for that reason. And remember, 7.5% interest rate is not problematic. It's, again, normal. We've been enjoying historic lows, and we tend to think this is the new normal. It's not. It's an aberration. This is a trough. And as interest rates go back up to that 7.5%, a whole generation of people will say, "Hey, look at me, I got a 7.5% mortgage. This is good," because on the other side, interest rates are going to go up, and they're going to go beyond that. And as they go up above that, the 7.5% mortgage is going to look good. And if you walk in the 3.5% mortgage, you're going to look like a genius. So we need to be talking about higher interest rates in the future as we go forward through prospects, so they understand the deal that they're getting, the value of buying now as opposed to waiting. While they may not grasp that if they are young, if they're talking to middle-aged people, they remember those high rates, just bring to mind that rates do end up going back up. Low-cost borrowing is keeping the world out of trouble right now. We can afford to be debtor nations. Canada is not a debtor nation, but the U.S. is, and Europe certainly is, and other nations are running on pure debt that at very low rates it's very affordable talking about, that we have a detrimental impact on the economy. We see things begin to slow down. We see that it's a large percent of federal budgets, and large percent of federal budgets means there's less money to be spent elsewhere, or taxes have to go up. So right now, it's very affordable, and while people are really concerned about debt crisis around the world, it's not a problem today. It's a problem down the road. We should fix it today while it's fixable, but it's not going to cause the U.S. economy to crash anytime soon. Let's move to the stock market. Canadian stock market has been underperforming the U.S. market. Hopefully you've had funds that have been indexed to the S&P 500, but the Toronto Exchange is at least turning around. The rate of change on top is starting to point up. That's a good sign for the economy. That's a leading indicator. It's telling us that things are going to get better, that profits are going to improve, and if you're invested in the Toronto Exchange, that bottom blue line is the line that you care about. You notice how it will stop declining, and it will start going up soon, and you'll see some return in your equity values in the Toronto Exchange in the second half of 2013. But beware, it's going to go down in 14. So either be in for the long haul, or understand you need to start thinking about going defensive when you get to the latter half of the year. And you're going to see that coming because the U.S. will signal it first. You're going to see the S&P 500 crest somewhere in the third quarter of 2013 in terms of a full corrective market. When it goes into a full corrective mode, make sure that you're ready to go defensive in the Toronto Exchange as well. Usually means utilities and such. I'm sure you know what that means. Okay, let's talk about what's happening around the world. I discussed China. Now, everybody can come off as bashing China. I'm just trying to present economic reality. We're going to do a lot of business there. We're going to do business there. We're going to sell a lot of product there. But companies are leaving China. The cost is going up every day. Labor rates are up 18.4% year over year, et cetera. So it just, the clock is ticking on China. I'm going to ask you, because I don't want to try to remember 182 nations, but try to remember what's happening in 182 nations. Ask me if there's another country you'd like me to comment on just because of investments, you're moving there, you want to buy real estate there, whatever is on your mind. Is there another nation that you would like some brief comment on? Yes, sir? Philippines. Philippines, picking up on what China is spinning off. Philippines, I believe, will be a slow growth environment as we go forward because the cost basis is advantageous to picking up some of what's leaving China and still be in the region. Population growth. Philippines slow growth going forward, no major concerns. That's it. Say it again? India is going to do better through 2013-14 than they would have previously, if you had asked me 2 months ago, because the Prime Minister is going to be investing, again, close to $1 trillion in infrastructure into India. And again, as Andy accurately pointed out, infrastructure is everything. So with an infrastructure movement and an environmental improvement inside India, they will attract more foreign direct investment, they will have more jobs created, and the stagflation that they've been living through should be lifted, and they should be able to move into economic prosperity that will, it's artificial, but it will carry them to 2015 when the natural global economic prosperity should cause them to continue to grow. So 2 thumbs up, difficult place, lots of problems, which will make money for doing business in India. Yes? Vietnam and Cambodia. Same as Philippines, picking up on those that are exiting out of China and looking for regional alternatives to low-cost labor. Vietnam has no infrastructure to speak of right now, not sufficient for them to be a mini China, but they are attracting enough business so that there's ongoing growth potential. One of our members just wrote a paper on Vietnam, and the bottom line was slow growth, nothing explosive, but not any harm either. And Cambodia is seeing the same goal. People leaving China are moving to Cambodia to set up shop. Yes. Italy is one of my favorite places. Italy has been certainly a poster child for interesting government. Probably a gentle way to put it. Always fun to watch what's happening in Italy. The good news is that Italy has shifted gears. I'm sure you all know. I always hesitate how much is such common knowledge I shouldn't even say it. For years, all of Europe, and Italy was some of the poster child of this, was you carry people until retirement. If they were redundant, you were stuck carrying 2/3 of their salary for 3 years, and then they were on government roll, and it was a company liability. And so you carried people for 3 years, 8 years, 9 years, And really a disincentive to hire because you can never get rid of the people that you hire. And if you can't get rid of people that you hire, then why do you want to bring them on in the first place? We're slow to hire, you can't fire, and expensive on the balance sheet. Italy just passed a law that allowed employers, in most cases, not all, in most cases, to lay people off. And put them right onto the government system of what we all call unemployment insurance. And while they receive their unemployment insurance for a year, they only get it if they're working, if they're looking for a job. So they have to be looking for a job, and there's not lifetime benefit. So it's a real incentive to go there and get a job at whatever pay level you can get. Real benefit. That's going to be my life. That's one of the things that's going to be my life, because now all of a sudden their cost basis drops. As their cost basis drops, they can sell globally more than they have in the past. They've been stuck with all kinds of entitlement costs and costs from previous downturns where they're still carrying people. All that's going to be shed. And they're going to be able to compete. It's going to be exciting about 2 days as a whole. So we're going to see that austerity works, that you cannot spend your way out of the kind of malaise and problems that Greece and Italy and Spain are having. It's going to be a nice test case of austerity works for the easy free market approach. Exciting. Well, yes, going back. Then I'll see the euro. Where do I see the euro going? Up, marginally, by inches, but up because, well, there are lots of reasons. Let me cover them real quickly with you. One, the European Central Bank is going to bail out any nation that needs to be bailed out with unlimited funds. You give up your national fiscal sovereignty to do that. That's the big caveat, but they will bail you out and they will take care of you until you're able to walk on your own. That stabilizes the union, and that's good. There's going to be a pan-European banking regulatory environment set up under the ECB, probably run by a German. But that's going to promote transparency, it's going to promote stability, it's going to promote trust in a banking system where right now there is no trust, and all banks need to operate on trust. So this is a great thing. And the third thing is the Germans. The Germans have declared they will bail out any nation that will sign on to austerity through their European Stability Mechanism. They've been cleared by their constitutional court, by the Brussels court, and so they will be able to fund nations that will embrace austerity. With the goal, if you're German descent, I apologize for this, with the goal that they will have political control. It's not stable, it's not written down. We can talk to Germans. They will have political control of Europe by the time this is all done. Now, about a month ago, when I was in the UK, I mentioned that they all went down. One gentleman said, at least it'll be more subtle this time. But the reality is they are the strongest economy. They have embraced austerity, where they did not always embrace austerity. They have embraced it with great determination, and they will export that solid financial thinking to the rest of Europe. And in doing so, they will rescue the EU along with probably the ECB. Such, there are balanced budgets by the end of this decade, and they'll be paying down the national debt in the 2020s, and that has to strengthen the EU in comparison to the US dollar. When it's Canada that has a balanced budget, start paying down national debt. 2016, maybe 17, but you're almost there. Do you know when the US is going to have a balanced budget? Will it be paying down national debt? There is a date, but it's close to that. The date is the year 2060. I did the math. I don't care. Perhaps when I do something, it happen. So that's why the euro strengthens against USD, is because the balance sheet will look better. And just so we all know, if you take the EU 27 and you wrap it up as one entity, it's the same size, if not slightly larger, than the US economy. So it's an amazingly powerful economic force as we go forward that will have a balance sheet that works. What they're not doing is having children.
Both Sweden and the Nordic country, a lot of positive press from them. They have a very high tax regime.
Yes, Sweden and the North nations have a high tax base. They're an interesting mix of socialism and capitalism, free market and government, and they make it work. They are a proof text that you can have lots of entitlements and somehow you can make it work. What hasn't been done ever is to see it on a very large scale. In a smaller setting, it seems to be possible, but it doesn't work free energy. On a very small scale, you can have a nuclear fusion instead of fission, but when you try to enlarge it, it just doesn't seem to work. So it works, and it's positive investment going forward. Oh, well. Yes, sir.
Now, if the U.S. is never going to balance its book, at least in our lifetime, what do you think of U.S. as a place to invest?
I think the U.S.
is running the way they're running it right now.
Let me repeat the question to make sure everybody heard you. Given that the U.S. is run the way it is, and what I just said about the ongoing deficits, what about the U.S. as a place to invest? And then I remember there was some answer there. The answer is invest in the U.S. for the next 17 years. There is going to be a significant recession in the U.S. in 2019 that will bleed over into Canada. But for the next 17 years, except for 2019 and probably one other year to a very small recession in the 2020s, property prices will be going up. We're making more. The economy will be expanding. And actually, most people in the U.S. will be lulled into a false sense of security. That somehow we can get away with having huge deficits and an extraordinary balance sheet, and somehow it doesn't matter. And under that false sense of security, life will go on, and people can make money investing. My wife and I, you should know, because you asked a very good question. My wife and I own real estate for rental in the U.S. This works well, we'll continue to do so, but we will sell it in the late 2020s because, and somebody asked me about this before, again, we still believe that there's a Great Depression coming from the U.S. in the 2030s. So you want to make sure that you're out of the U.S. by 2028, because I could be off by a little bit, 17 years now. There's a Great Depression coming and you want to buy. All right, there was another question. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry? UAE? Okay, UAE, the whole Middle East, not so hot on the whole Middle East situation right now. You have political turmoil, you have religious turmoil, and you have more local sources of energy than ever before around the world, with these less dependent upon Middle Eastern oil as we go forward. And the U.S. for the last 2 years in a row has been a net exporter of fuel oils and petroleum products. So with the U.S. demanding less out of the Middle East, with Poland and other nations developing fracking, we find that there's going to be less demand for Middle Eastern oil going forward. The U.S. in particular not needing Middle Eastern oil as we go forward, because the U.S. will be on energy independence before too long. Will not project military power into the Middle East, which will destabilize the Middle East, and destabilization of the Middle East means that all sorts of fun things can happen. Witness what's happening in Egypt, Syria, etc. So I'd be concerned the more that the U.S. does not need Middle Eastern oil, the less I'd be enticed to get excited about entire nation. It could easily come under Chinese control, which is not exciting to me, but at least it's the word control. They do have, and again, it's Chinese fashion, but we're looking at an imperialistic nation, and it goes on with the fashion, but they have designs for different parts of the world. And one of them is Africa, and one of them is the Middle East. There have been statements made about a massive infusion of youth into Africa with the idea that someday that will be the predominant language. That they will impart their view of the world and their culture, and they will buy resources and assets until it is another very strong enclave where Chinese is spoken and thrive. Yes? I did mention Poland twice. Poland is doing well, will continue to do well. When I talk to folks in Poland, their big concern is that they'll lose some of their free enterprise spirit and move back towards some socialism. I haven't seen a whole lot of that. I've seen it in the media, but I haven't seen it in practice. So Poland should continue to see population growth, economic opportunities, manufacturing move to Poland, export opportunities out of Poland. Yes, sir. Brazil has gotten through it's going through a tough patch here because of the inflationary problems. Much foreign direct investment going in, so they stopped foreign direct investment and made it difficult for foreign direct investment to go into Brazil, and they are on the Blind Brazil campaign. Never a really good thing, but nevertheless, Brazil will turn around because they will force some of that to turn artificially, but more importantly because they have the World Cup going there, and they have the not the Special Olympics, but the Olympics going there, and that's going to education level is going up, energy independent, food independent. They have everything they need to be a regional economic power for decades to come. One more, yes.
Yes. I'm a little bewildered because you said you expect an increase in interest rates by 2018. Yet, I've listened to your response about all these questions about these markets are low. And they're not low. So where's the impetus for the increase in interest rates, number one? And number two, how do you reconcile that with the Bank of Canada's mandate of price stability?
What I heard was, I'm not really high on these different regions to the point where we see all kinds of economic activity that would drive up inflation, that would then lead to drive up interest rates. So they didn't register?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got the question right. Nothing worse than answering my question.
What's the impetus for the increase in interest rates do you expect?
Okay, what's going to drive interest rates up going forward is inflation. Where's the inflation going to come from is then part of the question that I have to answer, because it's not going to come without inflation. Inflation is going to come because we are going to see enough economic growth going forward. It's not going to be 2006, 2007 bubble years, but we're going to see enough economic growth to put a strain on resources. Not a dramatic strain. We're not going to see inflation go to 18% or anything like that. We're going to see 3% inflation. This year will be 2.5 to 3%. We're going to get to a soft patch in 14, 15, we'll go to 3% inflation, 3.5%. And at our age, that's a big deal. That's not, we're just adjust. And our income level is not a big deal. And so the economy, we see wage raise to match inflation because our employees need it. And you begin to see just a soft movement. It's like the 1970s, if you remember that. There's a soft movement and soft movement in interest rates along with it. But those things build up speed over time, mostly at their own accord. And as China is doing well, and India is doing well, and as the US and Canada are doing well, there's just enough increase in demand for product and people that will let us see inflation, and that's going to be what makes interest rates. We're also going to see wage rates go up because, for instance, in the US, I'm not sure if this is in Canada, 10,000 people a day are now retiring in the US, more than ever before. That opens up a lot of job spots, and remember, we don't have a population. So with the job spots opening up, there's a bidding that goes on for talented people, engineers, management, etc. And that bidding up of labor caused by people exiting the workforce causes wage inflation also in the future. So we have labor inflation, volunteer inflation going forward. We're also going to find energy inflation, certainly because the dollar, US dollar, is going to weaken in comparison to other currencies because of the core US balance sheet. And since oil is denominated in dollars, there's just a natural tendency for that price to remain high, even though we have a lot of it coming out of the US and we have a lot of natural gas, and still upward pressure on the per barrel price, which is the inflation. So those are the reasons why I think we're going to see enough pressure. If you're thinking of the Carter kind of years, late 70s, early 80s, that doesn't happen for about 17 years. And there's just enough innovation.
Well, you haven't had any increase in real disposable incomes in quite some time. I think there's an energy revolution going on in North America now, which has a downward effect on that. So I'm just trying to see where this inflation is coming from.
Well, yeah, I've done my best to tell you where I think some increased demand around the world, increased demand is artificial now, and from natural later. Going forward, disposable personal income has been going up in different places. It's going to take a hit in 2014 in the US because of the tax increases, but it has been going up. And it will continue to go up as people are employed, come back to work around the world as the economy produces more work. I'm just more optimistic than you are, but I think that those are some Malta if you were recommended here, but it's really not a bad place. All of us has good things for Canada, because Canada's exports to the rest of the world are well spread out in terms of what we export and what is demanded from around the world. So there are opportunities for exporters and more that are tied to export-related industries and areas, the better off they'll be. Copper prices are reflective prices in general. Those copper prices have been edging up. It's not been a dramatic rise like we saw in 2009 and 10. But China has been buying a lot of copper, whether they're stockpiling it, like the Hunt did, or sort of the corner of the market on silver, or they're trying to get the copper miners in the nose. They're sitting in yards, but they're buying a lot of copper, driving up copper prices. prices and eventually reflected of other materials and metals. I'll shift to the U.S. to show you my reasons for optimism for the U.S. and highlight a couple problems as well. This is the U.S. economy now, we shift gears. Slowing down, exactly the same as we talked about in Canada. My reasons for recovery are straightforward. Both countries, excessive amounts of liquidity, which is also inflationary. Central banks around the world have created so much money, and fractional banking systems around the world are destroying so much money in terms of purchasing power that the natural economic result would be inflation less. The central banks are effective in withdrawing enough money from the system in time. That's a very difficult thing to do after they've been successful. So the sheer mass of stimulus spending in central bank intervention would argue for inflation going forward. Employment's going up in the U.S. Everything is going right as far as the U.S. is concerned for economic recovery going forward. These are real positives that can't be denied. And here's my forecast of GDP for the U.S. You can see a very small recession in 2014, but it's very small. Nothing like 2009. It's been a long run, full recovery into record high levels, which is growth. So that growth continues except for 2014 going forward. And there are opportunities, there's jobs, and life is good. Areas of concern that will impact the world are right here on the screen in front of me. Now, I already talked about Europe, so we're going to discuss Europe. Europe is not going to pull the world down, it's not the problem. Fiscal cliff is on everybody's mind. Sequestration is on everybody's mind, so I want to address that. Sequestration is, if we're all talking on the same page, is $1.2 trillion of tax increases in spending that has to occur over the next 10 years in the U.S., which means roughly 1 year's worth of deficit has to be taken care of over the next 10 years as we go forward. Now, a lot of that's going to occur in defense, some of it's going to occur in the Department of Interior, all kinds of different secretariats are going to be hit. Defense is usually on every American's mind. It's terrible what's going on in terms of how each department is playing this up. This is not a crisis problem, this is a turf war going on. All the worst case scenarios are being drawn up and presented to the American public. The reality is there's so much waste in federal spending in just about any nation on the planet, and the U.S. is certainly no exception to the rule, the postal child rule, that they cut the federal budget by $110 billion in 2013 should be a no-brainer event. It should be something that is easy to accomplish, and if any of us have to make the decision by looking at the budget, we have it done in 15 minutes and we actually get back to work. The U.S. Congress is going to make this an issue, we're going to drag itself some more, and that fiscal cliff, the raising the national debt, all of that's just not going to go away anytime soon. Lots of things will be created by this. I want you to see that defense spending had already gone below year levels before all of this started. So we're not talking about a major shift in policy. The Obama administration and Congress, by ending one war, winding down another war, is a natural pullback in defense spending. So what's being asked to be accomplished is just a normal event. But for some reason, Republicans are raising this human pride and now we're going to be defenseless and we'll be attacked in any moment. It just means we're going to back to more normal levels of activity and more normal percent of GDP. It really frustrates me to hear that there's this panic over defense spending. And this is one that I show everywhere. There's this belief in the U.S. that Democrats always cut defense spending, Republicans always raise defense spending, so I'd like to see that there's no validity at all to that. Unless Clinton and Carter are actually closet Republicans, there's no validity. Either one of them would rather not say that. There's no validity to that. Just a normal cyclical event. Now, taxes were raised in the U.S. $41 of tax increase for every dollar of tax cuts. And there's been a lot of discussion in the press about that, and I'm sure you've picked up a lot of that and wondered what it all means. And the bottom line is it means very little. Very, very little. The top 1% wage earners in the U.S. have seen their taxes go from 35% to 39.6%. On the top marginal rates, just whatever they earn over $450,000, now it's taxed 1.5% more. Now, if you make enough millions of dollars, that's enough money that might make you wish that it wasn't happening. But for most people, it's a non-event. And really, what's that? Oh, the lights? I was just, they're Republicans. Lights out. We're an action people organization. The reality is that the tax increases that matter the most are the ones that happen in the middle class. And the middle class saw their taxes go up by $1,000 per person on average in 2013. By President Obama. He repealed the Social Security tax by 2% several years ago. He put it back on this year, so there's $1,000 per person. Usually two people work. That's $2,000 a year. $100,000 pre-tax income, all of a sudden net pay is reduced by $2,000. That has an impact on spending. That's a drag on economic growth. That's the slope down in 2014. The mild cutbacks at the federal level is a drag. It's a small issue for us already, but it is a drag, and it will have a slight negative impact in 2014. As we go forward, we find that there's some drags, but nothing that's cataclysmic, nothing that says there's a recession of note. We're actually, as you can see there, saw before GDP is just basically went flat. 2 quarters of mild decline. Almost none. So the fiscal cliff was really played up by the press. There was never a cliff, there was always a slope. It doesn't have a major impact on our life, on our parents, and it doesn't change life in a bad way for most people. It's also not the answer. Do you remember when Canada had very high deficits and was running the national debt up? And do you remember how Canada got out of that? Cut spending with some mild tax increases. There's basically a 6-to-1 ratio, $6 a cut, $30 tax increases. What I just told you is that the U.S. adopted the 1-to-41 model. That just doesn't work. So while the U.S. is making lots of noises about correcting the problem, and the President's State of the Union is just all about we can fix this, there's no credible plan to fix it. And raising the minimum wage to $9 only makes it worse for people who earn minimum wage. It's pretty simple. Less people will have jobs. That also means that if you're working at McDonald's, if you're working at a grocery store, you're working at a department store, making minimum wage, only making $9, it means that the people who run the stores have to increase prices in order to cover the wages if they're going to keep the shareholders happy. So prices on hamburgers and prices on things inside the store are going to go up a little bit. So while you make a little more, prices go up a little more, and by the way, they go up a little more than the price increase, because we've got a hedge here, you have an increase in pay, so you're paying more taxes, but in essence, what you're paying out the door is the same, adjusted for wages, so you're a little worse off because you're paying more taxes, but you're paying the same value, adjusted for prices. So thank you. Please don't help me anymore. And Obamacare costs a lot of Americans hours. Now we can argue the virtues of Obamacare sometimes like we do for Q&A if you want, but the reality is Obamacare decreed by statute now that if you work 30 hours a week, that's full time. If you're full time, you should get full-time health insurance coverage provided by your employer. It's not by employer, but if you go to an exchange, the employer will pay $2,000 a year penalty, so that will cover your health insurance. The virtues of that, again, we can discuss that. But what I told an unbelievable amount of employers in the United States is I got to get only 30-hour employees and they're used to 25. And so the people who are earning minimum wage and took 5 hours of work away from them. So people who really needed it are now short 5 hours. So by wanting to help them, the government actually took away from them. That's the law of unintended consequences. There's always a law of unintended consequences. And so America is going to see people at the lower end of the economic ladder hurt going forward, and that's a drag. Middle Americans are going to pay more taxes. That's a drag on economic growth. Higher income people, slight drag, really has no significant impact. Okay. I think I've summed up fiscal cliff rather well. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to see another problem. I'm going to go through this really quickly because time is running on me, and I can't even remember if I did this with you last year or not. This is, the black line is U.S. healthcare. Average spending on healthcare in the U.S. per person on the left, and on the right is a percent of GDP, so we got it per person in total. Obviously, very expensive place for healthcare compared to other nations that are shown there. And you can see they're European, basically, European nations shown there. Where it happens is in our late 50s. So in our late 50s, in the U.S., we become the problem. Not in the other nations, only in the U.S. So I was getting an MRI the other day, and I'm in my late 50s. And I was getting an MRI, and I'm like, hey, I'm a But I did not say, hey, stop the machine and change my mind. The point being that if the service is available, and your insurance covers it, or it's a reasonable out of pocket, you're going to do it. And so in the U.S., with 10,000 people they retire, more people over the age of 55 and under the age of 18, the problem is only going to get worse and worse and worse, and this has nothing to do with healthcare. The healthcare system in the United States is a runaway freight train. And there's no credible solution on the table to fix it. That can bankrupt even the United States of America. There's no changes. We're very discussed the changes, so we won't go there. But that's one of the reasons, that's one of the reasons why we're headed towards the Great Recession. There's no structural fixing this problem in the current way. Okay, this is Dodd-Frank legislation. This is not legislation that reaches into Canada, but this is new financial regulations for the United States of America. It was diagrammed by J.P. Morgan. So I want to share it with you. Could you imagine being a bank living inside this web, having figured this out? This slows down economic growth. There's no way that this doesn't slow down economic growth. I'll set my voice like the quality of God. Did you see something like that? Is that talking too softly?
There are people in the back can hear you.
Oh, there's here in the back.
It's not me.
And as I mentioned, the federal debt in the United States is also a runaway freight train, 120% national debt, total federal debt, and state kind of local debt compared to GDP. In Canada, it's a $605.9 billion problem. In the U.S., it's $16.5 trillion at the federal level. Actually, no comparison between the two. In Canada, it's 38.9% of GDP. In the U.S., it's 104.4% of GDP just at the federal level. Totally unsustainable, and there's no credible movement to fixing the problem, despite all the political rhetoric to the contrary. Much safer investment in the future? Canada. People ask me where to put their money if they're afraid of the U.S. dollar collapsing. I tell them one country first at the top of my list, and that country is Canada. And I suggested that I have real estate in Canada, or investment businesses in Canada, because the economic mix here and the national balance sheet is so stable that this is the place that we want to be. So congratulations for living in one of the great places. There will be a major influx of really desperate refugees from the U.S. loaded with billions of dollars. You should expect them will be loaded sometime. Good news going forward. This is what sequestration is all about. Moving from the blue line down to the red line. I just like to see the magnitude that they are capable of dealing with in the United States Congress. And these are deficits projected going forward to 2035, and obviously these are very projected scenarios. All right. Natural gas deposits, shale, available in the United States, broad swath of the country, and that will certainly help as we go forward, but it won't be enough to undo all the other economic imbalances going forward. Employment is going up faster in the U.S. than it is in Canada, which is good news for the U.S. It helps forgive a lot of sins as we go forward. Delinquency rates in the United States are well below where they've been for 10 years, and the household debt level is at 29-year lows. That's the opposite of Canada, which is still going up, even though the rate rise is slow dramatically. That's a real plus in the U.S. right now. The Great Recession has caused a lot of American citizens to rebalance their books, deleverage, and as they've done so, that means that we can carry a lot of problems going forward. I already mentioned how we're on the road to energy independence in America, that is just playing out on this graph. It provides lots of job opportunity and growth, and allows us to get by a lot of our sins to the south because of this trend that's in front of you. Low consumer debt and a growing global market is extremely important. Business activity in the United States is beginning to bounce up. Those two orange lines are both moving up. That's good news. That means that B2B activity is sustainable going forward. And the ITR leading indicator, which was developed by my brother in the 1980s, early 1980s, leads the economy through highs and lows by 11 months. I got a time lapse this. What I'd like you to see is that leading indicator says the U.S. economy will be growing in 2013. I mean, it highlights the screen nicely when it does that. So take advantage of the fact that orange line pointing up, and that means that we will see the economy expanding in And when that orange line begins to move downward, then we know that we're shifting to the backside of the business cycle. We don't see a year ahead, this graph is telling us that. And the stock market is also moving up. So if you want an investment strategy for the next 2 or 3 months, you can look at the U.S. and remember I said that there's a bear market coming beginning in the third quarter of 2013. If you want a stock tip, by the way, I can give you one in case I never get a chance to see you again. 2014, when you think the trough is coming, you start buying Caterpillar, American Express, and FedEx. Just start buying those on the U.S. exchange, and you should make yourself a nice piece of money. American Express, FedEx, and Caterpillar. Okay? Remember those names that are doing well as you go forward. And it creates a nice wealth of stuff. And I'll be investing for some free, you need to know that. We all get together all day long, and lots of times. The key is to tell you what I'm going to sell. Okay. Yes. Corporate bond prices is a great leading indicator. The rates of change are moving downward. That's very obvious. That's a sign that the U.S. economy is going to be moving back to the business cycle. This leads the economy by about a year. This says that in 2013, the U.S. economy does shift into the non-recessionary stance that I was talking about. And I also see it in the University of Michigan's consumer confidence, consumer expectations index. The rates of change are tipping. If it continues to tip in a couple more months, I'll be a lot more comfortable with this indicator, but it's giving us preliminary indication that things are softening in the consumer sector. And the consumer in the U.S. is looking along at 2.6%, but that's not as strong as in Canada, but it is at record high levels of spending. Housing has yet to tip over in the U.S. It will tip over in terms of the rates of change. Top lines are going to move to the backside, begin to move downward in about 3 or 4 months. And when that happens, that's a sign that the U.S. economy moves to the backside of the business cycle as well. The bottom blue line, that's the actual recovered housing starts in the U.S. It's coming to an end at the end of this year. We're going to see that recovery continue. We're going to see prices continue to move up. We're going to see Texas and California and Arizona continue to prosper. There'll be good investment, be good potential, but remember, it comes to an end at the end of 2013. 2014 should see a mild, very mild decline. At this point, something in the magnitude of 5% decline in starts, prices basically stabilize in 2014 before it begins to move back up again in 2015. Things are good right now in housing, and that certainly means the U.S. economy feels good. What you do with all this information, I hope, is act on it. And I mentioned to you real early that I hope you're going to spend money on yourself. To do these things on this list means that you have to spend money. This doesn't happen automatically. You have to pay attention to it. You have to move in a certain direction. I would suggest that you pay lots of attention to number 1, and that you pay lots of attention to number 5. So let me just highlight those. Number 1 is all about leadership. It's all about you in relation to your direct report. PMA, positive mental attitude, that Andy espouses is not just a slogan, it's absolutely necessary. With all the uncertainty in the world, if the people that report to us don't think that we have a vision that works, don't think that we have a way through the mess, don't think that we have a way to somehow not just survive but thrive despite what's going on, then they will look for people that do inspire them. And if they don't look for people that inspire them, then they have a B or a C team that will be less productive. The A folks want to be with people who have a vision. They want to go where it's at. The B's, next, the C's will stay with you, but they will answer the phone on the 6th instead of the 7th. They won't be as cheerful with customers. They will do all the things that lower the standard of the business. They won't know they're doing it. They won't do it on purpose, but they just go because it's the practice of the whole lack of sense of urgency. It's all slowing down anyway. My bottom. Spend money on that, please. Make sure that you're investing in that inside of the company. Because of the headlines that I read, let alone Andy was talking about, that I was reading about the Canadian housing market, especially the GTA housing market, this is the time we have to inspire them to 2 or 3 bullet points as to why that's not true and why there's a good future in 2013. Take that away from today, take that away from PMA's output, but make sure that you have those bullet points to share and then live it every day. And that will make a difference in your Number 5 is all about your customers. I don't care if we're a bank or a mortgage company, if we're a developer or a real estate firm or an economist, we all have customers. We have to know what are the things in specific, in detail, that our customers want from a firm like ours in this environment. It can't be what they wanted in 2007, it can't be what they wanted in 2009, it's not even what they wanted in 2011, vastly different economic environments. What do they want from us now? If I was Andy's, friend, I mean, paid consultant, what I would tell Andy is, you have to study to see what people in Hong Kong want from your firm, so that you line up perfectly with their expectations. And as you line up perfectly with their expectations, they will pay more, they will come to you, they will do all those things. Price becomes less of a consideration because intuitively you're hitting the 5 to 10 things that they want from you. And do a double-blind study. And there are firms that do this on an international basis. A double-blind study that says, what do my customers want? You align with that, and they will come. And if you wonder why you may not have seen a new customer in a while, it's probably because you kick them off. Studies show that almost half the time we lose a customer to the poor customer service. And those same studies show that most of the time they will not tell us that it is. They will just not come back. So along with customer market research, number 2 is customer service. Always customer service. Because you can't service them if you don't know what they want. So you got number 1, and then really there's number 2. And that's all about empowerment, it's all about vision, it's all about rewards, and that's what makes it work. The rest of it I think is pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions, send me an email, I'll be happy to answer it. The last one, for what next, is 2019, the U.S. is looking at significant recession. In between, as I tried to explain, because the central bank activity, economy's ramping up, etc., we're going to see some inflationary pressures. How are you going to deal with those 2 things? Inflation, probably busy, and a significant downturn in 2019. How are you going to deal with that? That's the last one. Unless you really enjoy 2009, you want to do that again. What are we going to do? How much cash do we need? What's the right mix of people? What mistakes have we made so we can avoid making them again? Those are the things we have to go through now. Just manage teams so that we can avoid it. Because it's on our doorstep. It's only 5 years away. And we get so busy with the day-to-day that 5 years will be here at once. And if you really want the big one, what are you going to do with the Great Depression scenario? The Great Depression in the U.S. will quickly be over to Canada. Canada will be in the Great Depression also. Europe will be in the Great Depression. China will be in the Great Depression. The world will be depressed. So you want to be selling Rudolph and Red Baby. Wood in Colorado, you can smoke pot legally now. California, medicine. Or you're off the range. If you're like me, my age group, Great Depression is not an issue. And it's not really an issue for Andy either. 17 years from now, it's an issue for whoever 16 Andy on office. The same as for all of us. How are we going to help them get the company ready for Great Depression? Because we're going to be living, all of us are going to live at least 5% income for our future. We live well. We don't have to worry about inflation because the Great Depression takes care of that. It's a deflationary environment. All of a sudden, our meds are cheaper, housing cheaper, assistance is cheaper that we need. Everything becomes cheaper in the Great Depression. So we fix income folks who live well. It's our kids. Or if you're younger, you have to adjust to that reality. All right. Any answers to other questions we got? Thank you for your attention. I've enjoyed the lecture.
Questions for anybody at all that we haven't covered here today? What about Keystone Pipeline? Now, what happens? Obama makes a big symbol in the State of the Union on environmental and climate change, and the big protest up in front of the White House yesterday. Does he pass it or does he can it?
Yes. President Obama, and this is on page I really respect the office of the president. President Obama probably hasn't made up his mind on the issue. The reality is, this doesn't play well in Canada. We don't need pipeline. We have enough going on in the U.S. that we do not need shale oil and oil products piped down from Canada. We need more pipelines in the U.S. to distribute products, but we don't need that particular keystone. We won't need it in this. It's a tremendous cost. Canada would be much better off. Some piping as the U.S. So you sell it to people who have very deep pockets, who don't have an upside down balance sheet, will be needing it for decades, rather than short-term players in the U.S. have their gold around and sell it to the U.S. will pass it, we'll use it, and then we'll keep it.
Question, other question? Other question?
Housing is the why it increased so much, housing increased 28%. Why is that?
6 people moved it. Other than that, I don't know. Simple math. Anything up here?
Yeah, sorry, folks.
That's good. I don't need that. I don't want that. Ellen, you talked about raising taxes, which obviously we all understand we have to pay for it. But I'm sort of referring to California, friends that I have in the States. I understand California is in deep trouble. People are trying to get out, they can't sell their houses, and I understand it's from high taxes.
Interesting you say high in California in the same sentence. That's a perfect example of how not to do it. That's the 141 model, $1, that's $41 tax increase. And that's the price people out. That's what makes it unsustainable for long haul. The state of California has yet to go through a defined contribution program for the pension folks. They have yet to embrace significant austerity so they can actually afford and then reduce tax rates as they go forward. They're still very much in an entitlement mentality where the government is in control and will make everything better, as opposed to being a business-friendly environment and allowing employment growth and natural tax revenue growth because of organic growth as opposed to artificial growth. So the government of California has yet to realize the Canadian model, which is one of the most economic, 6-1 for California 6. Yes?
Alan, I just want to know what your thoughts are. Over the last couple of years, you're talking about the growth states, the ones sort of the fastest growth, and you mentioned Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, Florida, California was one, and you said, well, no. So I want to know what your thoughts are still on those as a growth for equity and investment. Also, with what's happening in the auto industry in Detroit like 5-6 years ago, said it doesn't need to be there. Is that changing now because the automotive industry is really doing a great job?
Okay, two questions in there. You forgot Texas on your list. But the other things on your list are good. Texas should get off of this right now. Affordability, people are moving their jobs, things created, wages are going up. So Warren State, no personal income tax, so retirees like they keep every down to people like that.
Good morning.
Oh, Texas. By the way, that's an interesting thing of ancestor of the South Africa. You can watch it. I was unfortunate that, and I didn't know they wanted to sorry, but the reality is Texas should be off the list. But you can go to Detroit, and housing, which had fallen, this was not just out 2 days ago, housing which had fallen from 200,000 to 45,000, in fact, up to 130,000. Because the auto industry is coming back and that affects more people and more businesses around it. Now, it's going to be a long time before it goes back up, above 2, but the fact of the matter is if there's a lot of problems, and it makes a change, and it still makes money going forward in Detroit. You just have to be careful with the type of property. That's a much tougher body than it is in Florida and other states. Because you don't want people living next to the abandoned neighborhood or the next neighborhood to be abandoned, hiring more police force. It's just not something we want to do. But they are making more cars than ever before. They're making better quality cars than they have in a generation. We actually make cars in the U.S. for export to South America. They used to be just stolen ones. They're picking up. But those are made in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. That's the area where it's really exceeding. Alabama is a state which has a risk. There's good things going on in Alabama. A lot of industry happening in Alabama.
Another question back here.
Just wondering what your thoughts are on second homes as opposed to housing.
Yeah, I think second homes are a wonderful idea, especially if you need to hide out from the kids. water, mountains, or rental property. You should, if you come buy a second home, you should have one of those three things in mind. That's where the value is going to be, we believe, going forward. You should have the mountain view, be near water, which is always good for property values. And because it's a place where you're rented out to seniors who want to take their month or 2 months or 6 months in whatever hotel you have to be on a golf course or a great view, proximity to Disney World, whatever that is. Still a great idea to do the first one on the second home that you're eventually going to use, or maybe use now. You're not going to lose the tax benefits on that for a long time.
Over here.
Now, this is waiting for the globe.
I know. We love the great ball.
I just want to know if he said that, not me.
Thank you. I'd like to ask about real estate investment trusts, U.S. or Canada?
REITs, which one to invest in? I've not studied them nation to nation to be able to give you the answer to that. REITs in general in the U.S., the big REITs are doing well, good opportunities, smaller REITs have been separate returns, but I've not compared them across the board with the other big REITs. But REITs are certainly a nice way to get into the game without having to have it.
Gold. What about gold? Should I be pouring my money into gold with inflation creeping back, the U.S. dollar collapsing, and this absolute kind of economic chaos by 2019?
No. Now, I'm not a gold expert. I got to say that I don't own any gold. Again, the investment question, you always have to know what the speaker's position is. I don't own any gold, and I don't want to own any gold. All right? It is an emotional metal. And I already told you my emotional level is fairly low. It is emotionally driven, and it is driven off of fears. And it's very hard to gauge fear as you go forward. It should be a good thing to move into with inflation coming. It should be a good thing to go into with fear of the U.S. dollar. So you may make a lot of money by investing in gold. So in the near term, I'm expecting more of a pullback in the way the European depression settling down in the U.S. I still recognize that there's currency of the world on the brink of disaster, et cetera. There's no imminent reason for a spike in gold, but longer term, you would expect that. Now, this is not true here, but it's certainly true in the U.S. In the history of the U.S., people that don't own gold have had forcibly taken away from them by the government. That doesn't mean it won't ever happen in Canada. So you could own something that is nationalized, and you no longer allowed to own, and it can no longer allow to use as currency. So if there's an economic collapse, and you think I'll use my gold in the barter system, what happens in an economic collapse is you are known for having a lot of gold, you also have to ask yourself if I have enough bullets to protect that gold. Farmland is actually much safer protected investment than gold, in my opinion. People want the produce from the land, you have a steady stream of income, and maybe a diminishing income, but that steady stream of income, you have a way to take care of things. And if you're an investor, you have an asset that is always in as population continues to expand and need for food is not going to go down, it's only going to go up. So my preference between the two, look at farmland before looking at water. But then investor, my inflation minded time.
Here's a short list. Yes.
Do you see with the inflation rates and wages and transportation costs and development going up, manufacturing jobs coming back to U.S. and Canada?
Yes, because they're going up faster elsewhere. Now, they're not going up as fast in Cambodia, Vietnam, or Poland, or Ukraine, or Turkey. But those are manufacturing centers, not the market. So if you want to produce where the market is, because short supply line because of fear, versus by a lot of large manufacturers in North America, the three countries, you're going to find that manufacturing continues a renaissance in North America because it is where the customer is at. And there's a move now towards near sourcing instead of outsourcing, and that near sourcing is going to be beneficial because, as I said, China's costing about 18.4% a year in the U.S., Canada, Mexico, and close to that. So until government regulations or until there's too much headwind to make a worthwhile move, firms will continue to come to North America. Chinese companies are coming to North America, all three nations. Those that had left North America are coming back to North America. One of the more famous ones is furniture. Furniture manufacturing left North Carolina. It's now coming back to North Carolina. My wife and I were looking for some furniture as an anecdote. I always ask where things are made, I care where things are made, so I asked the salesperson where it's a name brand, it's not a quality brand, where are they? And he said, well, everything except the bed is made back in North Carolina now, and the bed is coming back from North Carolina in 2013. He said, it's nothing to do with picture business, we can just produce it cheaper now in North Carolina than we can produce it in China and get it. So it will be all back in North Carolina, in that particular name brand. Lots of firms are experiencing that as they go forward. And they're tired of quality issues, and they're tired of IP issues. The quality IP business are working against that cost sourcing and creating that near source.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I'll have a two-pronged question once again. What's been the historical spread between the Fed funds rate and the state of prime, or Canada, Bank of Canada rate, the bank's prime? Is it too high in your opinion right now? Because it certainly seems high to me. And the second part of that question is, if we anticipate 5-year bond market yields, 10-year bond market yields to go down, can we expect a decrease in mortgage rates?
Let's do it again. You're saying you are expecting a decline in mortgage rates?
I think one of your slides showed that bond yields are going to be decreasing.
No, they do not. So we must look at this one. 10-year government yields have been going down, but that was not a projection that they're going to continue to go down. Just where they are now is very affordable borrowing. But we actually think that the 10-year borrowing rates are going to begin to go up. They're beginning to creep up in the U.S. They're beginning to creep up. 2.02 today, 10 years in the U.S. instead of 1.7 something like it was a few months ago. We're beginning to see that movement, which is worrisome more than anything. Now, to your first question, is the spread too large between prime and central bank rates? That's a perspective question. You know, bankers are upset by bankers are not sweating it once a bankrupt. I get a chance to talk to lots of them. The market is not upset by it. Market forces don't seem to be disturbed by it. So while it is historically really, in reality, it seems to be okay. What we can accept. I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't seem to be disruptive. Yes.
One last round? One last one? Two more. One there. Done.
In regards to the recession and the Great Depression comments, what are the parameters that's defining the difference between those? And how long will it last?
A recession, and the depression is a steeper than average recession, usually longer, and it's accompanied by inflation. So the Great Recession that we had was close, but it didn't really quite measure up. It was just a very bad recession. If somebody wanted to call it by industry depression, you could get away with that. Overall, it's like a recession. And the magnitude of 2019 is going to be less than 2009, but more than just 2014 kind of size. So you're going to expect more like a 2001 kind of deal, something along those lines, maybe towards the early 80s, but continuing to. So we're not going to like it, but it's very survivable, especially if that's what's the Great Depression is going to be like the 1930s. It's going to be long. And the more government help we all have, the longer it will be. That's the lesson of the 1930s. The more that they try to inflate, the more that they try to control, the more that they try to put it all in a box, the less efficient it becomes, and the more that things just sort of stumble along. So it's going to be long, years. And it's going to see the modern day record high levels of employment where we're on over 2,000 times. We must have something a little more positive to you than that.
So 17 years ago, 17 years away.
Yes.
So you and I don't have to worry about that.
Absolutely not.
Well, for our kids, like Lisa asked the question, that's the worry about it. We and I don't have to worry about it. We didn't have to prepare them.
That's right. And keep moving so the kids can find it.
My question is along the same line. You're so sure about it, 17 years away. Why can't the brilliant mind of the government also see it coming and do something?
The answer is in the question.
We have several gifts to give away before you go. So please help me. And Natasha, would you come up here? And Jennifer, she's still Is Jennifer here, and Natasha, and Alan, come on up and put where I have my, oh, I've got some. So, oh, good, let me put that microphone. Natasha, TV man, tell us about what's in this.
Oh, this one, to Indian markets and restaurants.
Great. Oh, here we go. Is that a winner? Okay. And how many of these do we have? I threw my glasses on. I can't read them. And the first winner of the TD is Christina Ma. Christina. And guess what? It's her birthday. How many is that? Another winner. Oh, for goodness sake, Sue Beaulieu! You remember this? And from Reliance, Jennifer, tell me what's in this fantastic package.
So we have a dinner for four to Ruby Watch Co.
What is that, the new restaurant?
It is a new restaurant. It's Chef Lynn Crawford from Food Network of Kitchen Inn, and she's a head chef for 4 seasons.
Oh, wow.
And there's a little goodies in there.
Oh,
It's
nice.
delicious. I promise you. Go on and start again as usual when she's there.
And what else is this? Very tempting.
Yeah, there's a couple goodies in there. There's vanilla honey in here. There's chocolates. There's all of the.
You better win this Valentine's Day. You better win it. So we got some, and then there's Mark Papovich, manager land and acquisition development for National Homes. Mark, are you still here? Who's that? Where's my room? You got to be in your room. Oh, tell Mark I'm sorry. Try again. I am sorry, Mark, but if you object, we'll let you say. TD Canada Trust, Piera Capello. Come on up, here's Piera Capello. That's fantastic. Now, we have a couple other things. What else have we got? We got a boys and girl thing. We have a boys and girl thing. Is that it? So this has to be a girl, or we just, it doesn't matter. What we did, we did our gift certificate to the Stillwater Spa, which is in Park Plaza. What's it called? Park Plaza? And also a round of golf for 2 at King Valley with Kent and I. Kent and Patty. All 3 bags. All 3 bags. Already agreed. So we won't discriminate by sex. We'll just draw these what they have to do to apply to what a gift for Valentine's Day. Either way, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend. So winners are. Linda and Troy from Remax. Linda and Troy, I can't read the last name. North County Beauty, Remax. There you are. All right. First up, I'll give you a choice. How about you want the squash or the golf? Happy Valentine's Day to you, honey. And Julie Mora from Canadian Railings is the winner of the squash certificate. Congratulations. Enjoy the question. Well, the only challenge is you'll have to take 4 or 5 this week. Thanks. I think that's it. I think we're done. Thank you so much. A fantastic session. We'll see you in a couple of months.